Right.
Hi, this is Sue Schmidt with Witchy. I want to welcome you today to the webinar on the skills and competencies of professional coaching. How can they be useful for our work as career coaches? I'm really excited today to introduce you to our speaker. Cynthia Loy Darst is passionate about raising the bar on quality in the profession of coaching. It's great that Cynthia is the past president of ACTO, and she has over 20 years of professional experience in coaching and is considered a pioneer in the coaching world. One of the first to gain the designation of Master Certified Coach from the International Coach Federation, Cynthia was a founding member of the International Coach Federation. She was one of the first front-of-room leaders for both the Coaches Training Institute and CRR Global. She is a favorite in the coaching world, and she delivered the opening keynote for the 2012 Midwest Regional ICF Conference and has been a featured speaker at many conferences. I encourage you after the session to go back and listen to her TEDx Olympic Boulevard Women's presentation that's on YouTube. I went ahead and listened to that, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. So I think it's something that you all may also be interested in listening to. Finally, as you know, this is funded by the U.S. Department of Education, and as is always the case, there is a disclaimer in relationship to this work, as you can see here. With that, I am going to advance to the next slide and turn it over to Cynthia.
Great. Hello, folks. My name is Cynthia, as you can see, and I'm excited to be here with you today and have this conversation. In talking to Sue, I'm fascinated by the work you're doing. It sounds like you're doing beautiful work with people. And at the same time, I may not fully understand your work. So I've made a few assumptions today, and as we talk together, please do not hesitate to correct me if I've made assumptions that do not fit, that are not quite right. I would love for this to be an interactive conversation where every one of you can come off the call, feeling like, oh, that was fun, or oh, I learned something here, or that we had a lively conversation that's going to help your work and inspire you, hopefully, to do ever better, have ever better connection with the people that you work with. So before we just jump in, I'm going to do little pauses along the way to see if anyone has anything that they want to say just right off the bat before we jump in today. So if that's you, you're welcome to throw something on the chat or to jump on the call with me and interact with me for a moment. Okay, cool. So I'm going to give you an overview of where we're going, and this is where I think we're going. And so who knows? We might shift it a little bit as we talk. In talking with Sue, one of the things that we started talking about is something called the ICF core competencies. So I don't know how much you know about the world of professional coaching, or if you do. Some of you might know it very well. Others of you may never have heard of this stuff. And so I don't want to make assumptions here. And so I'm going to give you a little layout about the world of professional coaching so that we're all tracking on the same page. So there's this organization, the ICF, the International Coach Federation. At this point, there are about, I believe, 47,000 members of the International Coach Federation. It was founded about 20 years ago by about 15 of us sitting around in a room together, deciding that it would be a very good idea for there to be ethics and standards of the coaching profession. And one of the things that was happening in the early years of coaching is that as different people started developing coach training, we were getting into these kind of disagreements about, well, you know, this is what coaching is, and the different organization would say, no, this is what coaching is, and it was a little bit of a push me, pull you, and we decided to sit down together and start to create what we could all agree upon as the core competencies of the profession of coaching. And one of the things that was challenging at that time is that you know, people, like, we couldn't even quite articulate what was the difference between a coach and a consultant, and how could we really tell? What was the difference between a coach and a mentor, or a coach and a therapist? And so what I want to, like in my world, a coach is a very specific kind of person. The idea of professional coaching is that we're taking someone from where they are today, right now in this moment, and looking with them to forward the action in their life. And a professional coaching relationship usually takes place over time rather than a one-shot deal. Okay? A coach is someone who really comes alongside of the person that we're working with, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. I know that Sue sent out the ICF core competencies to you all, and I'm guessing that some of you read through it. It sure looked like it. I got some feedback from some of you about your thoughts about the core competencies, and it brought up enough that gave me some ideas of what we might want to talk about today. So thank you for that input. Yeah. I want to go ahead and make a couple of other distinctions for you before we move forward into these three main coaching tools. In my opinion, in my point of view, the difference between a consultant and a consultant is someone who comes in with expertise. And they see the situation that the person is in, the client is in, and they basically tell them, here's my idea of how you need to proceed. So if I have a problem with my computer, I'm actually wanting a computer consultant. I'm wanting someone who knows what they're doing, that they can help me fix that problem so that I can then take their advice and move forward. Okay? That's different from coaching. As a coach, I'm going to be finding out my client's best way forward rather than my point of view, my expertise on how I think they should move forward when I don't know the person very well yet. Okay? And this is a bit of a challenge that you have, because as a career coach with the work you do, you have a lot of expertise that's going to be very helpful to your people. And so how do you navigate that? How do you really hold the expertise and the information that you have, but really make sure that you're working with each individual as that unique person? To me, that would feel like one of the biggest challenges that you guys are up against. And so before I move on from that, I just want to kind of check in and see, what are your thoughts on this so far? Anyone want to interact with me here?
Hey, John, would you be willing to interact a little bit on this one?
So I promise you this is going to be a whole lot more fun if you guys interact with me. It doesn't even matter what you say or if you agree with me. I don't care.
Hi, this is John. I'm sorry, I was muted there for a second. But
okay, hi John.
I just wanted to let you know I really appreciated what you said about coming alongside. I think that's completely true, and I always felt like that rather than try to be just a didactic teacher or just kind of working off a checklist, that students respond better to that coming alongside, and I always think of it as a partnership, and that's always what's kind of worked well for me. So I appreciated that you said that.
Great, terrific, John. Terrific, John. You're actually giving you're giving us a really good segue into this next piece. So can I forward the slides here, Sue? Or do you do it?
You can forward the slides. I think there was someone else, though, that might have wanted to respond. So just open it up for a second and see if they would like to also contribute.
Okay.
That was Christy. I was going to say the exact same thing John said. So.
Oh, great.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Christy. Great, great. Cool. So I just wanted to touch on this idea of professional coaching with you all. I'm not going to read through the ICF core competencies with you simply because that would take most of the call. There's a lot in there. What I am going to do with you is pull out 3 main things that I think you may already be doing, but it might be useful for us to just talk through. Okay? So let's move on to this next one. So I've already talked a little bit about professional coaching. And if you want to see more about that, please go to coachfederation.org, and you can see what's going on in the world of coaching. Okay. The 3 main tools that I want to talk through with you guys today. First is this idea of co-creating a relationship with someone. Now, here's the thing. We tend to go into professional relationships with someone, and we tend to assume that, like I go to my dentist, and I just assume that my dentist, like I kind of hope that they're going to communicate with me in a way that works, but I kind of put myself in their hands. And sometimes that might work out just fine, and other times, we come away from an experience where we're like, oh my God, I wish the person had talked to me, or I wish they had done this, or I wish they had just slowed down and explained what was going on. And so in the world of professional coaching, before we just jump into the work with someone, we literally talk about how we're going to work together. And I know that many of you must already do something like that, explaining to them what you have to offer. But also what I want to encourage is you finding out what they're hoping for and what they assume might happen in this relationship with you, or what maybe they're nervous about. So that as you start to work with them, you really have a conscious partnership moving forward rather than a relationship where they kind of grant you all this power to fix their career or something, and then they kind of sit there and wait to be done. In my world, if someone is hoping that I'm going to fix them, it really is not going to be a very effective relationship. So I want to kind of offer that idea to you. We're going to talk about it a little bit further. We're going to look at all 3 of these tools, active listening and powerful questions as well. And let's go into this. So this idea, a consulting relationship, that's the one that I've kind of brought out here, is that the client, the student, whoever you're working with, looks to you as this expert who's going to tell them what to do. And when that happens, it can put you in a position of having all of this responsibility and of having to somehow be a mind reader, and then having to try to make it work for this poor, frail person. And I'm guessing that some of you have been put in that position before. And I'm wondering, I'd love to have a little conversation with you about what happens for you if you get put into that position where you have all of this responsibility for them. Who has a thought about that?
Well, I'll speak to that. I feel like that I'm the parent and they're the child, and that's the kind of relationship that I think is productive. I don't think that empowers the student to be successful in the future, and it certainly makes my life less enjoyable at work.
That's so well said, John, and you're pointing to something. So often a young adult, I'm not exactly sure of the ages that you're working with, but I'm assuming that many of them are young adults, and so most of the relationships they've had have been parent-child or teacher-child, where they don't know how to partner someone in a relationship, and so they do tend to grant often too much power to the person who is working with them.
And then along with that comes where they just then it's your fault if something doesn't go right.
Exactly. Absolutely exactly. And it sets you up as well. So just hang with me a second, John, because as we look now toward this slide on the coaching relationship, there's what we are after with that consciously created relationship is this side by side, where yes, you have some information that might be useful for them, but you're really coming alongside to partner with them. And so what I want to encourage, if you're not already doing this, you might be, is to have this conversation with them up front about the kind of relationship you want to be having with them. Now, they may not understand it entirely, but at least it will be useful, and you'll be able to come back to it so that they are taking as much responsibility as you are about having this relationship work and having their vision and plan work moving forward. Yeah. Other thoughts on that,
No,
John?
I agree with you completely, and I think as a mental health therapist, when I see clients, it's the same thing in private practice, where we set expectations up front, and we establish that foundation from the beginning.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for interacting with me, John. Anyone else want to jump in and have and I'd love to hear other people's reflections and thoughts on this.
Hey, Ann Siebert, how about you? Would you share some of your thoughts in relation?
Sue, you were cutting in and out there. I couldn't hear you.
Great. Ann, I think she was just inviting you to, how's this landing for you?
I think it is remembering to stay in that professional coach versus, having kind of that parent relationship, if you will. And as we up at LCCC, they all go through me through the application process. So they're running through a lot of checklist items at the same time that we are kind of exploring why they want to go into the program that we have here at LCCC. So it can be that really delicate balance between coaching them when we discuss their results and then being that kind of parent who allows them to continue on with the program if they complete the application process and meet the requirements.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense, but it would be very challenging if you're going through a whole checklist. It can make it so that that the conversation that you have with them is more transactional, than really an intimate conversation about where they're going. And I would guess that would be challenging.
And then once and it is that balance of when do you go through the checklist, quote unquote, and then once they're accepted, then you can kind of begin to continue to work on or offer that coaching relationship as they continue in their coursework and everyday life, and then as they get prepared to enter the workforce.
That makes total sense. That makes total sense. They really have to get through that other stuff first. Great. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Let's move on to this next piece. This next piece about listening. What does it mean? What does it mean to really listen to someone? So one of the places that I want to just kind of play with you a minute is around the idea of where is your attention when you listen. Is your attention on them, really listening to sort of not only what's being said, but what's not being said? Or does your attention go into your own thinking? Now, most human beings, when we listen to someone else, we actually are listening as much, if not more, to our own ideas and to our own judgments and our own opinions of what that other person is saying. Okay? And that's totally valid, especially if you're like, let's say someone is telling you about some things they're interested in, chances are you're going through a file in your head about what you might have to offer them. Yeah? And I want you to be able to set that aside somewhat so that you're really listening for what makes this person unique, what has this person, like what does this person really value? What is this person's beliefs? What has them think they need to go in the direction that they're going in? What has them stuck or feeling like some people, I'm guessing, feel like they're incapable or like they don't know if they're up to the challenge. So I'm wanting to encourage you to just simply keep noticing where your attention is so that the way you listen is really active and really with the attention focused on them. And by the way, yes, I did notice this morning that I made a typo in this third question on the right. Are you waiting for them to stop talking so that you can tell them your ideas? There's not supposed to be an and in there. But I think you get the point. Yeah. Yeah. So what are you noticing about how you listen? I'd love to talk to someone about this. I know Sue is encouraging Teresa and Christy. Would one of you like to say something about what you're hearing so far?
This is Christy. My personal opinion is that's probably the most important part of the relationship. Yeah. I think when people know that you're listening, the relationship changes because people aren't used to that. And I think I'm finding the resume is one of my greatest tools as a counseling tool. Oh my gosh. Because when you work with people and they're stuck or they're frustrated or I don't know what direction or I haven't done anything, when you start talking about their resume and their life and listen to where they've been, and when they see that, even when they see it on a piece of paper, it's just, I think it changes how they see themselves. But I think in truly listening and let them talk and where they've been, where they're going, I mean, just to pull the positives out of that is just, it can be life-changing for people.
You know, Christy, the way you say that, there's a quality and energy as you speak that sounds so acknowledging. Like I get that when you're talking through someone's resume with them, that they're feeling seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a gift.
Right. They're not judged.
Yes. Outstanding. Outstanding. Okay, Teresa, I see that since you're not having student contact, that you're just listening to. That's no problem. Thank you. Maria, did you have something else you wanted to ask or say here? Let's see. I'm reading what Maria has. Although I'm not a coach and do not have those expertise skills, for me listening is more about surrendering my own thoughts. Beautiful. In order to allow space and time for someone else's thoughts. That's so well said. That's lovely. Great. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about powerful questions. Powerful questions. So so often when we're working with people, it's easy to ask questions that have us understand them. And like most human beings tend to ask curiosity, they bring their curiosity and they gather information. One of the traps in coaching is it can be easy to start gathering all of this information so that you can figure out this person's way forward. That, once again, puts you in the driver's seat. And while I'm certain that you need a good deal of that kind of information to help guide them with their career, part of what I would want for you here is not to have to work that hard, but instead to really put the ball in their court so that you're asking these short, open-ended questions. What do you want? What are you here for? What would it look like? How would you know if you were on a good path forward? What's important for you? How might it work? What's your first step? What might a plan look like? And maybe you already do this, but I very much want to encourage you, particularly as you're coming up with, as you're coming up with plans forward, that you're really having your client be designing their own plan forward. Because if it's not theirs, if it's your idea and the chance of them engaging with it fully will be lower. And so what do you think about this idea of using powerful questions as you work with the people you're working with? And for those of you who, like Teresa and and Maria, I want to encourage you to think about using questions like that in the work that you do every day. So tell me how this is landing, or what thoughts come up for any of you around powerful questions. Yes.
Well, I think that one of the things that makes this work, firstly, is when you've gained their trust and with what you discussed earlier, your good points about listening skills. People are more willing to share the how and the why if they feel like it's a safe environment. But I think the key is also that, I think I really like your list. I think open-ended is important in a way that just requires more thoughtful response. But once you get people kind of on a roll, even introverted people, they'll be happy to share the things that really matter to them, as long as they feel like that it matters to the person they're telling it to.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Really good stuff there, John. Yeah, who else? Other thoughts on this? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about, really look together at challenging situations. So take a look around and notice, think about a time when there was someone you were working with, maybe there's someone right now who you really do want to work well with, but it's just challenging, and maybe you're not sure how. The whole point of this is we really want to take this time to share with each other, because it's always so useful to learn from from each other when you're doing the same kind of work. That makes such a difference. And I'm noticing, Amy, that you've written, I have good listening skills, but I do have a tendency to want to help by doing some of the work for them. I'll have to remember that they must do the work for themselves. Absolutely. It's so challenging because of course you want to be helpful. Of course you want to support them. But exactly, if it's not theirs, if they're not then people will tend to do what you've laid out for them to please you rather than to create something for themselves. So thank you for that comment there, Amy. That's great. So this time really is going to be us talking about you and your challenging situation. So I'm just going to sit here and wait, and let's see who comes forward.
Hi, Cynthia. It's Christy.
Hi.
So I have just met with 2 students. One is from Ghana and one is from Kenya. A young man from Kenya. I find this very challenging because they don't understand. They don't even know how to do a resume. They're not used to, and they don't understand the culture. It's really difficult for me not to say, okay, I'll do it for you.
Well, I bet.
Especially like a resume and the formatting and the wording and like the woman from Ghana. I mean, the first thing she wrote is, I'm 44 years old. Everything was on a resume, and for me to step in, I don't want to. My biggest thing is not to offend them, and then not to do everything for them. And they're scared. They haven't been here very long. So, if anyone has suggestions on, I mean, how much do you do? How much do you not? Because it's almost like teaching somebody to fish. You've got to show them how to do it,
exactly,
so that they know how to.
Well, you're pointing to something really important here. And because it's one thing to be working with someone who's in basically the same culture as you and has had the similar background, where there's a shared understanding of what a resume looks like. So for someone who is coming in from an entirely different culture, that can be particularly challenging. And and so let's talk, because I'm wondering how other people here deal with people that really are not in the American culture in that way, and how do you support them in learning about this culture they're coming into to get work? Anybody have any thoughts or ideas on this?
Have you, Christy, or is it Christy? Yeah, Christy, have you handed or connected them with your international department?
Yes, yeah, they do have that. But you know, at a school too, it's not as much one-on-one focused on I guess for these guys right now. What's really nice here at Red Rocks is they require a resume for class, so I go into every class and work with people on resumes.
Correct.
And I can just see how little they do understand and how little resources they have. And a lot of them, I think, are afraid. And I think they're connected to those, but I'm not sure what they get on that end of it. And maybe that's a good idea too. I need to go into the office and just say, hey, because I'm pretty new here too, and I really don't know what all
I wonder if you could do a joint seminar with them on resume
seminar?
Writing.
And
just do an international
with international
focus.
Yeah,
great idea.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Well, you know, Christy, you're also pointing out something really important, and that is that when our clients come to us in whatever way, shape, or form, because we want to have it for this to be theirs and for us to use their ideas, doesn't mean that they have all the information that they need.
Right.
It really doesn't. And so one of the things that I'm hearing you point to, and I would encourage, is for you to take a time where you're actually a teacher or a trainer with them about the ideas of resume and about how it would work and like that, like you're saying, and help them formulate their first resume or something, and then be able to check in. So how are you doing with these ideas? How what do you think about all this? How, and maybe even in when it feels right, just finding ways to help them feel more safe in the process.
Right.
And have that conversation. You know, just acknowledging, of course it's normal when someone's coming from another culture to not quite understand what's going on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It sounds like you're doing beautiful work with people. Yeah. Who else? Yes.
This is Ann at LCCC. I'll share a situation that recently, actually this morning, I listened to a voicemail from someone. We had a client last year who had begun the application. We tracked with her a little bit throughout the summer, and we never heard anything. And then just before classes started, she made appointments, came in very late to meet with me. And I don't want to say that she is, she's just someone who probably comes from a lower income level. And if you think of that Bridges Out of Poverty or some of those types of programs, it's a lot of, I think, of just that difference in mentality. So she was accepted into the program. Our gut kind of said, I don't think this is a good thing, but we still accepted her. And she ended up kind of falling off the map during the semester last fall, so fall 2013. She had tried and unsuccessfully tried some other programs in the past, but we thought, you know what, we're going to give her a chance. We'll work with her. The faculty and I both tried to contact her throughout the semester, and she did come in once or twice with me. Still ended up just kind of dropping things and not having any more communication. We ended up dropping her out of the program because of her lack of communication and not doing any classwork. And then just this last week, she gave me a phone call because she had attended a seminar regarding the or a program that we're working with that helps with paying for some classes. And so she's back. She would like another chance. However, I'm thinking, my gut says this is just another chance to get in and utilize some other money, and I don't know that I would, at this point, trust her that she's going to, again, really complete the program this time. So, you know, our next steps of how do we contact her and do that well.
Yeah. I'm curious, because this is one thing that I don't know how you guys work with. It really does sound like you're up against some cultural norms. And like you're saying, so if someone has, you know, it's easy to assume that people would understand that if you're coming into the world of job market and career, that it would be important to be on time and to communicate and to be responsible about what you say that you're going to do, you know, that kind of thing. But you're so right that if she was brought up in a culture where that was never modeled to her, and that's not what is assumed in the family system she came from, or the you know, whatever that is, then it's actually a huge stretch. I found that sometimes people don't know that the assumption is made about them being on time and how they participate. So I'm wondering how do you, what is offered for people to almost like a life skills course or you know, something like that. I'm wondering if something like that is offered.
It's not specifically offered through us, but it could be something that we offer in tandem with another program that we have here in the community, which is kind of following that Circle of Bridges Out of Poverty mentality. And I know she's worked for many, many years with public assistance and some of those types of things, so I know that they would have at least attempted to, again, it's that parent-child mentality in that situation versus a coaching mentality, but they would have worked with her to say, you need to be on time, you need to do this, you know, X, Y, Z, in order to do an application process or some of those things. But it is a challenge to kind of break through that, and my gut says I'd love to give her another chance. Again, however, there's that big however in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've also pointed to something really important, and that is trust. And so, so any time that I'm working with a client and I'm not feeling like I can trust them, whether it's to do the work that they've said they wanted to do, or whether I don't know if I can trust them to show up for their appointment or something like that, what that says to me is I have to go back to that place of co-creating a relationship. And before we move further and I sort of try to trust them or blindly trust them, that we actually have a conversation again about where I might say, I don't know if I can trust you with this, and I want to I want us to talk through with this and really set up what I might call conditions, or like ways for them, like markers, so that we can together know if someone is doing what they say they're going to do. And it sounds fundamental to me. It's like that if she is to be successful in an American job market, there is going to be something about learning how to take responsibility in this way. And that can be very challenging when someone really has never had that kind of like you say, when they're in that kind of parent-child where someone's going to take care of them. It can be a very challenging shift to make.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else have other thoughts or ideas here? Ways that you've worked with it? Oh, I'm seeing that there's, sorry, I had my back to the little chat window. Let's see. Let me read. I think this is from Amy. I'm with CHAMP rather than CHIO, and I've just started working with students. One of the certificates is for welding, and the instructor wants us to be very selective about who gets into the program. That defeats the purpose of the grant, but what are some of the questions I can ask to really understand whether they are ready for the challenge? By the way, I'm communicating by chat so as not to disturb my office mate. That's an interesting challenge there, Amy. It actually defeats the grant time, that it's important to be selective. So it does sound like there are, it sounds like you might want to lay out the challenge in a way that when you are screening people for this, that you are really talking through with them what the challenge might be, and to help them decide whether this is going to be a good program for them. So that is kind of a fascinating thing. Very selective. I'm sure you have this already, but just in case, has the instructor actually told you the selection criteria that he or she is using for this? Like, what does that mean to be selective? How would you know? Because it's so easy. If somebody says to us, well, I want you to be really selective, well, we start to assume that we somehow would know what that selection criteria is. So I would get really curious with that instructor and help them to find that criteria, and then be able to talk through that criteria with those potential students. That's where I would go with it, and I'd love to hear if there are any other thoughts that someone has. Maybe someone else has dealt with a situation like this. Oh, no, he expects you to develop the selection criteria. Oh, what he's wanting can be perceived as discriminatory. Oh, very interesting. So it's putting you in a really awkward position. That is a tough one. Huh. So I wonder, Amy. It's like, here's what this reminds me of. often go in to work with executives in companies, right? And it's not the least bit unusual for the company that, head of the HR department or whatever, to put me in the position, I call it getting triangulated, where they want me to tell the person that if they don't ship up, they're going to get fired, or if that that I'm supposed to report back to the HR department about how the coaching is going for this person. It's actually something I will not do. So when I am in a place of working with an executive, I will co-create the relationship 3 ways. Ideally, I will have a conversation with the HR person or the person who's bringing me in, and have and at the same time with the person I'm going to be coaching, so that together we can agree on how that, if there's going to be a reporting process, how that's going to come from my client to the HR department or to his boss, rather than me reporting for him. So this is a different situation, but I would strongly recommend that you step away from a situation where you're feeling squeezed, and that you actually let the person who's in charge of the welding instructor or whatever know that that won't work for you. That you're happy to pre-screen in a certain way, but that you can't be put into that position. So that might be a little challenging to do, but I would recommend it, because otherwise it's going to be just uncomfortable all the way around. So hope that's useful. Yeah, we have a little over 10 minutes left here. What's another situation that's challenging? Oh, that's great. Is there someone at HR you could talk to about this? That's great. That's a good suggestion, Sue. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Other challenging situations, or maybe not even challenging situations, but questions that you might have about the idea of coaching. I'm going to hold for that, and then I have one other thought of another place we might want to go. So Sue, when you and I were talking, oh good. Oh great. Good. That's good, Amy, that you've discussed this with the department chair and she's aware of the situation. That's smart. That's a good move. Yeah. 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 I just do want to highlight that it is so easy when we're working with not only just our one client, that one person. When we're working inside of a system, and you all are, it's so important that we're on the same page with what we're doing, and that you're not being put in a position to do something that feels like you've got to be a little covert or sneaky in how to do it. It just makes things uncomfortable all the way around. That's an awful kind of pressure to be under. So I wanted to bring up one other piece that Sue and I talked about when we first talked about this call, and that is about working with your clients around what they actually value. Oh, Sue, you have your hand up. You're showing me something. It looks like your microphone is on, is it? But I'm not hearing you. Okay, now your microphone's off. So I'm going to go ahead with this, and please pause me if there's something you're trying to say there, Sue, that I'm missing. So one of the ways that I work with a client, on occasion people come to me because they want to do something different with their lives, or they're shifting careers themselves. And I don't call myself a career consultant. I don't have a background in, specifically working with people on, there's a lot you guys know that I don't about the world of career, and I haven't put together a resume for someone in years. But when I am working with someone around their career, what I notice is how often people come in looking for a job. That's the way it used to be, is people wanted a job. And they weren't taking the time to truly find out what they value, what makes life meaningful for them, what's fulfilling for them. And I know John answered that question, one of the questions that I asked about, are you working with people toward a fulfilling path versus just getting a job? So John, you had a lovely response to that. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I think that there are several factors when we look at trying to help people to find more than just a job. We look at what their temperament is, what their motivation is, what their talents are, and from that we can help to determine, what job they will be most likely to be successful at, because half of their energy won't be expended just by showing up to work. When we do something we don't like, then we're half tired just by the time we get there. So, of course, there's always the real world constraint of sometimes we have to go where the work is, and always make a living doing what we have talents in. But if we can find an ability to have a good marriage between temperament, talent, and motivation combined with what is available, and we can make a fit there, then usually I have somebody that has now developed more than a job. They have a career and something they can be very passionate and have an excellent chance of success.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So it sounds like I'm guessing that you guys have, with those checklists, there's a good amount of testing or really helping someone find out what their natural skill set is or what their natural aptitudes are, and that can be so useful. And then it sounds like you're also having a conversation about what turns someone on. Like right now, I'm working with someone who's a manager at Capital One. And she's really looking at what's the future she wants to have. Does she want to be, moving more into a director position, or is there some other, what is it? And part of what she's doing is learning how to, really see how she navigates stress, and what makes a really good day at work. What makes life fun for her? What kinds of situations really turn her on, and does she do well in? And so pretty soon we start coming up with values of hers, like teamwork and collaboration and respect. And so as we start to create her vision forward, what we know is that we're going more and more towards making sure she's having those kinds of things in her day: teamwork, collaboration, respect, a sense of accomplishment. So if she's put in a situation where she has to do a whole bunch of stuff alone, or she's with some people who it doesn't feel like a respectful environment, we know that that's just not going to set her up for success, and that these are the kinds of things that she can start having, really having some awareness of. Because if we're not aware of situations where we really do well and it's fulfilling for us, then it's very difficult for us to create more of them in our lives. So there are a few thoughts on values. How are any of you doing work like bringing forth a conversation around your clients' values and what gives them meaning? Anybody have a thought on that one?
This is Christy, and I worked for the Workforce Center for a while. And years ago, a group of us there actually built our own value assessment.
Cool.
And we put questions together that we thought was important, and it really opened my eyes to, I don't know, it's so different, and that I guess allowing people to actually talk about it, because I think a lot of people are right. You need a job. You need to work. They didn't even know that could even be a part of their decision.
Exactly.
It's okay that I don't want to. It's okay if I do want to make a lot of money. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Focus on that. It's okay if I don't want to make a lot of money and I just want to have a purpose in my life, doing this, or this. And that's one of the first things I use with my clients now. Yeah, even over other things, that's usually the first one I use, because people don't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're so right, especially when they're, it's like quite often for most people, I believe, in the United States, we don't even get to that conversation about what makes life worth living until we're in our 30s or 40s or maybe even 50s. And how great if you can start that with people earlier, so that they're really pointed in a direction that works for them. Mm-hmm. Terrific, Christy. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're starting to come to the end of our time together today, and I'd love to see if there are any last thoughts or questions before we start to wrap up. I see, Sue, that you have put into the chat room the feedback link for the survey. The survey today.
Yes. So can you hear me now? I figured out how to unmute my.
Yes.
Sorry, everyone.
Yes. There you are.
I just wanted to mention one thing in relationship to the question about the welding instructor, and because I actually worked with a welding instructor that had no idea that there were YouTube videos that could demonstrate for his students how they could weld effectively, so that they could use that kind of as reinforcement. And it was kind of a building process for me to establish a relationship with him, because he was very old school in relationship to teaching welding and what the students should do, and he shows them, they do it. And so, I had to first build trust. And after I built trust, then I was able to sit down with him and say, hey, have you ever seen this YouTube video? And just popped it in. And he goes, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was there. But it was building the trust relationship first, so he was open to listening to me. And I just had the thought in relationship to the conversation about the welding instructor that, and I'm just going to take a leap here, that often they are males that are teaching this, and I know sometimes that a profession that is not typically one that females participate, sometimes there's some questioning about their effectiveness in that. And another approach could be to introduce a female who's been, or whatever the situation is, but someone who's been successful in welding, in that profile that person's questioning. Again, when I was in the railroad and I was out on a derailment, and I was talking to a trucking company, and he said, I love to hire women because bottom line is they keep their trucks clean and they're great mechanics. So again, just thinking outside the box a little bit, in a profession that's typically kind of dominated by one type of profile, trying to introduce them to another. So that was just the thought there.
That's so smart. Terrific, Sue. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, and Nancy says, Sue, that's helpful to me as an instructional designer. That's great, absolutely. So good. So thank you for having me here with you today. It feels like we've had some interesting discussion and just stimulating some thoughts on several things. So I very much appreciate that. If you want to find out anything more about my world, the world of professional coaching, and you can certainly go to my website, www.theinspirationpoint.com. and that can kind of link you up with a whole lot of things. You're so welcome, Maria. Good. I see Maria says, thank you, wonderful. I appreciate that very much. Great. Sue, anything else for us today, or shall I sign
Actually,
off?
I just wanted to mention again, please fill out SurveyMonkey. It's very important to us to have your feedback in relationship to these sessions to help guide us and direct us in relationship to future sessions. We actually have concluded the last of the 4 sessions for this grant year. Obviously the next thing is going to be the Professional Development Workshop in August, but we will also be delivering 3 webinars in grant year 3, so your feedback and suggestions are very much encouraged so that I can again focus these webinars to things that you're really caring about and to help assist you in your professional development. So with that, I close for today. Thank you so much for your participation.
Great. You're so welcome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, and bye-bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, Cynthia.
Bye-bye.